In this video we're going to brew this beer, and I mean exactly this beer. This beer is a clone of the Brooklyn Lager from Brooklyn Brewery in New York, United States. The beer type is described as an amber lager on the bottle, but I think it's more common to refer it as a Vienna lager. The beer was first brewed and sold in 1988, so it's a quite old craft brewery. And the recipe for this beer is Brew Your Own's clone of this beer. So let's turn back the time about 2 months and see how I brewed this beer on my Brewtools. That beer looked smashing, but the beer doesn't brew itself, we have to brew it here today. So here is my Brewtools B80, and let's prepare it so we can brew our Brooklyn Lager. I have filled the B80 with water and I've heated it up to 90 degrees because I'm going to pump about 32 liters to my mini uni. Because I'm going to use it as a sparge water container today. So let's pump some water in it. Then I have to pump it through my transfer hose like that. I'm of course not going to sparge at 90 degrees C, but since the mashing lasts for a couple of hours, the temperature in the mini uni will drop. Yeah, after the mini uni is filled, we are left with this amount of water, about 23 liters at 90 degrees C. So I will fill up with cold water until 53 liters. And then there's 53 liters in there, and our strike temperature today is about 49 degrees C, and now it's 43. So let's transfer the recipe from Brewfather to the Brewtools, and let's start mashing in. And the heating is done, and let's get our mash tun in. And for the first time today I'm going to use this mash temperature sensor. I guess it's just to place it like that. Obviously it will tell the temperature inside of the malt. And we're just going to use a tiny amount of water adjustments today. In with some cold water, and let's have it straight into the mash water. And then it's time to add our grains. This is the malt bale. It's crushed at about 1.2 millimeters. So let's pour it in. No, wait. Almost forgot. I have to block that pipe. So let's stir it in. Also, first time used today is my new malt stirrer. malt paddle, and in with the second bucket of malt. And let's stir that in as well. The first mashing step today is at 47 degrees centigrade, and it's a protein rest step which lasts for 20 minutes. My personal opinion is that that is not really necessary with our modern malts, but it is what Brew Your Own's recipe says, so I'll do it like that. I'll try to follow the recipe as closely as possible. But the recipe is based on American malt types and stuff, so obviously, since it's a beer from New York, but here in Europe we can't get those exactly same malt types, so we're using the closest things that I could get here. I can't imagine that being very different. So in with the mash sensor again, and let's circulate the wort through in a whirlpool effect around the malt pipe. Okay, the mashing is in progress, and the Brewtools will control the temperature steps. After a while I will put on the mash manifold and start to circulate through the mash. But at the start I will just circulate around the malt pipe. So put on the lid to save some energy, and see you in a bit. Okay, then the malt bed has rested for a while, and let's put on this mash manifold and get some circulation through the malt bed. This gives an evener temperature and yeah, better yield. I was as far down as I could get it, and let's adjust the valve. And then we see some circulation. So it will stay like this for the rest of the mashing time. Alright, mashing is almost done, 7 seconds left, and the color looks great, and there has been a nice flow through the malt pipe the whole mashing time. Okay, mashing is complete, heating elements, blah blah blah, okay. Then it tells me to sparge with 31.8 liters of water. So let's do that. First I will take out this one. Okay, so let's raise up our malt pipe, and I have my winch. To do that job for me. Taking it a bit slow. Okay, you can rest there. So let's turn this valve to open up for the sparge water, and adjust the other valve to up center, and I'll start the pump. And there we can see some fresh sparge water. Yeah, Brewfolder says that I'm going to sparge until I reach a volume of 74.5 liters. And I have the liter markings on the back of the Brewtools. But since there's a couple of liters in the hoses and underneath the Brewtools, I think I'll deduct 2 liters, so I'll sparge until it says 72.5 liters on the markings. Yeah, and this has been cooling down from 90 and it's still super hot. Okay, then we have sparged enough, so I'll just hoist this thing off. And aim underneath with that one, and then I can lower it down. Like that. And then we're bringing it up to boil, and let's throw in the turbinator so that the whirlpool effect can gather all the trub inside of the turbinator. And let's also bring on the steam hat and the steam condenser. This way the boil it's faster to get up to boil, and the steam condenser will gather the steam into a bucket. And here is the steam condenser. It's very smart to do this while your face is over this hole, so you can get some steam in your face. It's nice and cold. Oh, that was very stupid. Should of course have mounted it on the steam hat on my bench. And then let's get some water through. Yeah, so that's the steam condenser. It's a very clever system. You add the cold water on top of it, and the steam comes through the bend and meets the cold water, and just in a big bucket or into a drain if you have that in your brewery. So let's close it up and wait until our first hop addition. Yeah, and I have prepared the hops during the mash time, so they sit and wait there. And yesterday I sonic cleaned the Unitank on the right side, so it's ready for meeting some wort later today. Then it will just continue to boil, and I have to empty out some of the condensation water, maybe in half an hour. And our next boil addition is our 35-minute addition. And to brew our Brooklyn lager, we need some yeast, and here I have made a double yeast starter of WLP 833. So this is the second of 2 steps, and now I'm going to decant the beer on top of the yeast. And I need to sample it, so I'll take a glass into my sink and pour some of the beer into the glass and the rest of it just into the sink, so I can taste my starter and to see if there's no infection in the starter. Always taste your starter. And that beeping is the end of boil. Yoo-hoo! And let's taste it first. It doesn't taste good, but it doesn't taste bad or sour or infected. So the yeast is ready to be used today. Okay, boil is completed, so I'll exit out the message, and now everything turns off on the Brewtools. So then I can take off the steam hat, but first I'll turn off the water. Water is off. I can open this one also, and I'll just take my water hose and connect it to my counterflow chiller, because that's where it's going to be used next. Okay, this operation here is a bit hot, so be careful with your sissy little hands and hold the rubber parts of the steam hat and place it somewhere, maybe like here. So let's turn on the water and pump the wort through the counterflow chiller to cool it down. And let's start the pump. And now the wort will go through the counterflow chiller, be cooled down with the cold water and back into the kettle, and it will create a whirlpool. But let's get all this hop residue down into the kettle. I want to have the taste from the hops into the beer and not on just the side walls here, because they are to no good use. Still cooling down the wort. It's 47 degrees in the tank, and the return is now 16.9 degrees at 50% speed on the pump. Our pitch target is 13 degrees C, but then again I'm going to pressure ferment, and which you're not going to need to take the temperature that seriously, because you can ferment at a much higher temperature if you have pressure on your beer. But I will not set temperature from the start. I'll just let the pressure free rise from the activity of the yeast, and when the pressure has come to about 0.8 bars, I'll bump up the temperature till maybe 19-20 degrees C and let the beer ferment out that way. So that's not how the original Brew Your Own recipe says how to do it, but yeah, I guess modern unitanks with pressure possibilities, yeah, it makes everything a little bit different. Yeah, we can see here it's 43.5 in the tank and 16.5 on the return temperature. Oh yeah, and by the way, I have switched out the Brewtools chiller to the good old Z chiller that I used to use on my Spider Brewmaster. It's a much more efficient cooler than the Brewtools cooler. Now the temperature is down to 13.9 degrees on the return. That's at 40% pump speed. So I guess now in August the tap water isn't cold enough and my patient isn't good enough for me to continue cooling, so I'll start transferring to the Unitank now at 13.9 degrees. Okay, so first of all, there's still water from when I transferred the sparge water to the mini uni in this hose. So, but I have this cap on, and this is sanitized from the heat of the 1990 degrees water. So I'll just put it in my sink, and then the pump is still pumping, so I'll just block the cooler for a minute, and then the wort will pump out the hose, and I can follow it till the sink, and we can soon see that water turns into wort, and then I can turn this back on, off there. So I blocked this hose again, and then I can attach it to the Unitank. Like that, and then I can start pumping the wort into the Unitank. And then we are transferring, filling the tank. Yeah, and we're also down to 13.5 degrees, so that's not too bad. Can take the lid off the Unitank so I can see. So I can film here by holding this lamp over. We can get some light and we can see the wort coming into the Unitank. My tilt is already inside the tank. I don't see it float, but it's there. I don't know if you can see it, but the tilt is actually stuck in the side glass. So I hope the activity from the yeast when that starts will loosen it and it will start floating on top again. Yeah, and then we have the yeast. It has been spinning for about 15 minutes. Do that for two reasons. First of all, it's much easier to get the yeast out of the flask this way, but it also activates the yeast. So yeah, making it ready for the bigger job it's going to do inside of the Unitank. Yeah, the tilt loosened up so I can get readings there. It's been saying 1055, but I took some wort out of the tank to check the original gravity on the ingrediens. And then it's on with the lid, and then I'll adjust the spunding valve to about almost no pressure at all first. 0.2 bars. I'm doing it because I don't want to start with pressure, and I also I'm too lazy to make a blow off, so I'll just a little bit of pressure. Okay, let's take a sample from here into this. the measurement on my phone. And that's our original gravity. And then I have one more trick today, and that is to get the rest of the wort from all the hoses out using CO2 to push it out. So I have attached this CO2 block here. I'll open it for it, and then I'll push the wort out with CO2. So let's add some CO2 pressure, and you can see the wort going out of the hoses. So that way I get about 2 liters extra of wort to the unit tank. Yeah, you can see now that the hoses are almost empty. Just a little bit of wort there, and the rest is in the tank. That's the end of the brew day. Everything went just fine today. I don't remember having any problems. I overshot the original gravity by 1 point, but that's not a lot. It's pretty close, I'd say. So let's keep the beer on the tank for a few weeks, but in about a week's time I'll dry hop with the bag that I vacuumed earlier today. Here is the result of the beer that we brewed in the video. It's been a little over a month since I kegged the beer, so it's been lagering for a little while. But it's not super clear yet, so I guess it will clear up a bit more after a while. But it's not super hazy either, so I think the looks of the beer is it's pleasant for my eyes. But let's crack open the original bottle and see how it compares to the clone. Yep. Okay, let's pour it in the glass. And the color looks similar to the clone, but it is a bit more clear. Yeah, it has a little head to it also. Original Brooklyn Lager in my right hand and the clone in my left hand. And we can clearly see that the original one is darker in color than the clone. It's surprisingly darker. I didn't expect the color to be that different, because it's one of getting the color right is one of the easiest thing you can do in a clone recipe. And we can see it's a bit clearer, but it's not super clear. It's not like crystal. So picking up the aroma, this is it hasn't got a lot of aroma, but neither has the clone. This is brewed in Sweden for the EU market. It says so on the label on the bottle. I guess it's very close to the original one brewed in New York, and it's at 5.2 ABV, and my clone ended up at 5.1 ABV. So let's taste first the original and then the clone. This is how I remember the taste. It's a nice beer. It has a slight malty character and it's not very bitter. It has a nice and clean taste to it. It has some hop character, but you can't really tell it's been dry hopped. So let's compare it to the one I brewed. This has more flavor to it, and it's smoother on the taste, and on the aftertaste I get some bitterness down my throat. One more taste. Yeah, but you can tell, or you can guess that it is a clone of that beer. It's similar, but not point on. One more taste of the original one to compare. This has a flavor to it that I very often find in commercial beers. It's a taste that I really can't explain. The closest thing I can try to explain it with is that it's a bit of a hard bitterness. The bitterness from the hops is more smooth in the homebrewed version. And I find this taste so often when I drink commercial beers, but I have never figured out really why this happens and why it's there. Yeah, but it is a good beer. So to sum up, the color is lighter, but the beer tastes smoother and the bitterness is smoother, but it has that nice rich malty flavor, and I can tell that it is almost the same beer. So, as always, which beer would I prefer to drink? The clone from Brew Your Own or the original one from Brooklyn Brewery? Well, this beer is smoother, and I like a smoother beer. So by that I say skål. Thank you to Brew Your Own for making the clone recipe. Thank you to Brooklyn Brewery for being an inspiration for other breweries in the craft beer revolution. And thank you for watching this video, and an extra thank you to my patrons. See you in the next episode, and skål!